my name is Leah,
And my name is Abhinav.
and our study was titled Encroaching Forests Decouple Alpine Butterfly Population Dynamics. We're going to talk about how environmental changes, particularly rising tree lines and forest encroachments, are affecting the Rocky Mountain Apollo butterfly. Over the past 50 years, the combination of global warming and fire suppression has caused tree lines to rise in the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, Canada. This has dramatically reduced the size of alpine meadows, the butterfly's primary habitat, and fragmented it into smaller, more isolated patches. For species like the Apollo butterfly, these changes create significant challenges and create smaller, more isolated populations that face higher risks of extinction due to limited connectivity. This fragmentation raises important questions on how butterflies disperse between meadows and whether forest patches play a role in limiting their movement. So for our objectives, our research question was, to what extent do forest encroachment or rising tree lines in alpine meadows affect synchrony of population dynamics in Parnassus smintheus, or the Apollo butterfly, subpopulations along Jumping Pound Ridge? We have two hypotheses in this study. The first one being forest encroachment and rising tree lines, which increase the risk of local extinction of Apollo subpopulations, yet decreased regional extinctions as a result of fragmentation and reduced dispersal. The other one being forest areas between meadows will result in the reduction in dispersal and therefore gene flow in Apollos, decreasing the synchrony. So methods. This study was conducted over an 11-year period from 1995 to 2005 along Jumping Pound Ridge in the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, and this is in Canada. To estimate the population sizes, they used mark recapture method, where the butterflies were recaptured, marked with identifiers, and later released back into their habitats. So the recaptures allowed the research team to estimate the population sizes by tracking how many butterflies were they able to catch again. Population dynamics were also assessed using the annual growth rates, which are calculated by comparing the changes in population size from one year to the other. Next, spatial analysis was composed of measuring distances between meadows and distinguishing between local distance, forested distance, and open meadow distances. And also, aerial photographs, and maps were used to help visualize how much the meadows are actually separated from each, actually separated each subpopulation. And finally, statistical analysis was used, such as linear regression and Mentel's test, to see how meadow distances affected population synchrony.
Right. Now we're going to take a look at some of the findings in this study. First of all, by looking at the graphs, we were able to determine that forest distances tend to have a strong effect on population dynamics. Second of all, when there are barriers that are less than a kilometer in forest, they isolate the butterfly populations, which increases the local extinction risks, and therefore leading to a limited dispersal and connectivity between the meadows, as we can see in this graph right here. Next, some of the results that we saw is that there was very few synchrony going on in between the forest due to the separation. And second, we also found that there was a massive amount of extinction rate when those butterfly populations were isolated. However, we see that this was offset by newer butterfly colonies regrouping in those extincted areas and reusing those habitats, using a better system for moving around. And then a broader trend that we did find was that the tree line shrink alpine meadows, isolating habitats further. By changing their pattern, they lower regional extinction risk. And overall, as we've seen from these results, We understand that the evidence provided in the article confirms the hypothesis that the author had made at the beginning. And some stuff that would like to be discussed. As we've seen from our results, it really shows how much fragmentation has an effect on the dynamics of the butterflies in the alpine meadows. Second, now by looking at this evidence, we understand that not only is fragmentation an issue, but what causes the fragmentation. We see that climate change, the way that the land is being used, and the survival of the different butterfly species all have an effect on the fragmentation that determines the dynamics of the butterflies. And then finally, it really does highlight the importance of what happens to this land and its effect on the species that live on it. In conclusion, we found that forest enroachment has many effects on the dynamics of the alpine butterfly population by splitting their habits. Some of those effects are done by dispersal, reduced gene flow, and increased extinction risks for those smaller populations. And second, this article also provides a necessary point on what the consequences are of habitat fragmentation due to those environmental changes. It also explains the need for us to provide conservation efforts to these meadows so that we can maintain the biodiversity of it and to maintain the population of the alpine butterfly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.